that are around the table. Why don't we start with Murnau?
Murnau Vikram.
Kevin Frizz.
David Sigmund.
Zul Zolkowitz.
Tristan Haas, Seth Gordon.
Kim McCall, Amy Rowland,
Libby Hutton.
And I'm Nancy Gosho. And do we have anyone online? Oh, we do.
Yaron
So-
Nodi Victor.
All right, so any of the items, we have one voted on tonight at this meeting will be voted on by the full board on Thursday, February 12th. Before we start the agenda, do we have any members of the public or committee members that have any new land use, housing, zoning committee business items they'd like to bring up? Raise your hands, please. Seeing none, let's go into how this meeting will run. After each presentation, committee members will ask questions. Then we'll take questions and comments from the public. While there's no time limit on the comments, we ask that you speak succinctly and avoid repetition of a prior speaker. If you use the raise hand function, Julie will call on you. Only committee members and board members can participate in the discussion. There'll be no further input from the public unless recognized by me, the chair. Board members will be promoted to panelists for the board for the business session. Finally, I'll call for a motion, a second, and take a vote. After the last agenda item, we'll adjourn the meeting. So I just want to remind everyone that the purpose of our committee is to promote development that aligns with city goals and district needs, to evaluate proposals based on long-term public benefit, and to foster a collaborative, consensus-driven process among diverse stakeholders. Our role is to ensure that land use and zoning reflect community needs and to help build equitable, resilient, and thriving Midtown Manhattan neighborhoods. So we have two items on our agenda tonight, with one draft resolution to vote on. So let's start with our first agenda item, which is 343 Madison Avenue. This is an application for a minor update to previously approved special permits for a commercial office tower at 343 Madison Avenue, which is where the former MTA headquarters was located. This is within the Vanderbilt corridor of the Special Midtown District. Our lead committee member is Tristan Haas. Tristan, do you want to say anything before the presentation starts?
No, I mean, reviewed the application and I actually worked very close to here, so walked by it. And I think it really should be non-controversial, I would say. So I think the application
Okay.
information dives into it.
Okay,
Presentation
great.
information.
Okay, great. So who is presenting tonight for 343 Madison Avenue?
I'm here on the Zoom, Zach Bernstein from Fried Frank Land Use Council to the developer, Boston Properties.
Great. So go
And
ahead, please.
and I'm-
Presentation.
I'm here on the panel with Andrew Query from KPF, the architect. Andrew, do you have the deck to share, the presentation deck?
I do. I can share it. Hi, everybody. I'm Andrew. This one, right? Yeah. Sure. Okay.
Great. Thanks, Andrew. Is everyone seeing this in the meeting?
Yes, we can see it. Thank you.
All right, fantastic. So I'm just going to give a very brief reminder overview of what these project approvals were originally, and then get to what we're here for today. Next slide, please. Possibly. Okay. So this is a site in the orange box within the larger orange rectangle on the left side of the screen. The VC represents the Vanderbilt corridor, which is a sub-district of the greater East Midtown district. And this project came through the ULURP approval process in 2021. It was approved in the fall of 2021, getting a special permit for a bonus for both off-site and on-site transit improvements, and a special permit that modified some of the applicable regulations to allow the building form that was proposed at the time. Next slide. So these are illustrations of the transit improvements from the presentation back in 2021. At the top are the off-site transit improvements, which are now completed. they included improvements to certain stairwells connecting from the 456 line to the 7 Flushing line, as well as some fairly significant improvements both to stairwell widths and also creating a brand new passage to increase egress throughput off of the middle of the platform, whereas previously it was more limited to the far ends of the platform there. So that part of the work is done. The second piece is on site and is ongoing now. Those who have walked by will have seen it, and I have a picture of it. This is a rendering of approximately what it will look like when it's done. It's really intended to be, one of the more showcase and central entrances to Grand Central Madison, which if you haven't been in the new terminal, it's beautiful. They've done a really nice job on it, and this will make a single escalator ride down to the mezzanine there from Madison Avenue. Next slide, please. And here you can see an aerial construction shot. On the upper right is a cross section that just illustrates how far down and how much excavation has needed to be done to get you from Madison Avenue here down to the platform level. And this is realizing what a more than decade-long process that from when the MTA originally put out an RFP for its aged headquarters site. Their vision all along was to leverage a developer to get access down to the platform level of this new terminal. That was really a twinkle in the eye at the time of the original RFP. But now it's operational, and this part of the project is expected to open by summer of this year. So it's very exciting. And ownership has recently gotten an anchor tenant that helps to shore up the financing to move ahead with the overall development. So development is moving ahead on the right side of the site to build the new office building. Next slide, please. So at the time of the original approvals, there was an envelope within which the new development had to fit, a maximum envelope. And, originally in the process, there was a larger envelope, as often happens with these things. The envelope was reduced through the process. And at the end of the process, there was a concern about the envelope on 44th Street not being higher than the Yale Club. What you can see on the upper right is the Yale Club's terrace that hangs out over the sidewalk. If anyone has ever visited the Yale Club, they have and I've been there on a visit part of the project, although I haven't dined up here. There's an outdoor dining area on this parapet or cornice that hangs out over East 44th Street. And they were particularly concerned to make sure that any setback on the new building was at or lower than the height of the Yale Club terrace. At the time of the approvals, that height had not been surveyed yet. And so the building drawings had the 295-foot height that had been approved at the City Planning Commission level, but also a note requiring that it be no higher than the Yale Club terrace. That terrace is in fact at about 283 feet. And so this application is modifying the drawings to remove that note for future use and to adjust, if you go to the next slide, to adjust the envelope down to a point at or below the Yale Club terrace. So it's bringing that 295 down to 283 along East 44th Street. And so these thin black lines now represent the new maximum building envelope. As it happens in the evolution of the design along both East 44th Street and Madison Avenue is actually 26 feet lower than the Yale Club before wrapping around to 45th Street, where there's a portion of the building that goes to the original 295-foot height. And I believe that is the totality of the presentation. The next slide is a rendering of the building that hopefully you'll be seeing come into form in the coming year or so as construction progresses on the site. So that's the presentation. I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, committee questions. David.
If you go back to that axon that you had up before, the previous slide. So my question, I mean, it's it's not really directly related to the adjustment you made, but where you show, the recesses and now this change in the level of the floor, what happened to the square footage that was in those areas? Did that go to the top of the building? Are you under building the site now because of this and other design changes compared to the original approval?
That's a good question. I'll defer to the architect in a moment, but I believe the building is utilizing the floor area that was granted, but there's a lot of design development and coordination that happens in floor to floor heights and other aspects of the building between the time it's in ULURP when it's more conceptual schematic to when it's been fully designed and fitted out for the tenants. Andrew, do you have a further answer to how things get pushed and pulled along?
Yeah, it's a two-part answer. The first is the project was approved for up to 30 FAR. But the final building does not utilize the entirety of that FAR. The reason is that as we got past the approvals and we got into the granular technical coordination of all the core layouts and what actually can get deducted from zoning floor area, we found we had more deductions than we needed, but that was the building. So I think we're somewhere around FAR 29 and change, never tripping across the FAR 30, which was approved.
So even this adjustment, though, dropping the floor down 26 feet, you lost additional floor area doing that?
Andrew, I think that's probably part of what isn't filling up the full 30 FAR. It doesn't account for all of what's not filling it up. I think there's probably pushes and pulls in other areas of the building or lesser stories total on the top that contribute to not using it all.
Well, you used a good term, push and pull. If you have to kind of remember that at the point of approval, we were through schematic design. There was a tremendous amount of technical coordination that came later, design development and the development of contract documents where we got very, very specific with regard to technical coordination. So I think we were being probably a little conservative at the point of an approval, just to buy ourselves the wiggle room to, as we push through more detailed coordination, we could be assured we wouldn't trip over the FAR 30. And at the end of the process, we're falling just short of what was approved.
Can I ask another?
Yes, of course, then.
If you go back to the picture that shows the internal subway entrance.
This guy?
Yeah, yes. Oh, no, I'm sorry. The one that shows the, I guess the elevation or.
In construction, you mean?
Perception of the elevator.
Yeah, that
Second.
shows the escalator. Oh, there we go. Yeah. So, I'm on the transportation committee. I think we reviewed this for the bonus. And originally I thought that design, the escalator was like a switchback. You took it down to a mezzanine and then you switched back in the other direction. And then you turned around and walked back towards the left side of the drawing. Am I remembering that correctly? Is this an improvement in how the traffic moves, through the building and onto the concourse?
Very much an improvement. I think you're recalling the initial RFP that came out in. If I remember 20.
Yes, that's right. I remember a long time ago, there was I don't know how long you've been at it on the transportation committee, but the MTA's own original plan was going north first underneath the sidewalk, underneath the street.
Under the Roosevelt.
Yeah, under the Roosevelt and then coming back down. It was through the early design development determined that was fairly infeasible and not great for commuters either, if I recall correctly.
Yeah,
And
we
it
call,
impacted
when I say
the,
this is an improvement, we call it the straight shot because this is a much more direct way of bringing commuters right from Madison Avenue directly down onto the concourse and avoiding a switchback.
And the floor, the surface area before you get on the escalator at the top of this drawing, that was bonusable, so none of that changed, as this design changed?
No,
None, no, yeah, none of that changed since we were approved.
Got it, okay.
Other questions, Tristan?
It was very controversial in my view.
Anyone
I mean,
else?
is this the last design change you're intending to propose?
Anyone else? Michael?
No, that was the question. That was-
Oh, okay.
Are there any, do you expect to have to come back for any other future changes, or do you think this is the final proposal?
Oh, God, no. No, this is the last, we're not coming back for anything else. This is, if you can't tell by you
No,
can't
sir.
tell from the photo, Turner Construction is well underway in construction. I would take it for granted if we tried to change anything now, they'd shoot us.
Well, you should get invited out on the terrace for lunch during the summer, it's very nice.
Ah, yeah.
Andrew, I'm going to, so there won't be any more changes, however, the special permits by their terms, every special permit with few exceptions, has an overall 10-year allowance to vest, meaning you've poured foundations, but it's broken up into an initial 4-year term and then 2 additional 3-year terms. We're nearing the end in this coming fall of our initial 4-year term. So in an abundance of caution, we have filed a renewal application. If the foundation is not complete by the fall, we may be back before you with our renewal application. Although I mean, this is a lovely group, but I hope that we're far enough along that we don't have to.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? Michael?
In case you do make some changes, can I just request that some design be put into, making sure that the entrance to the Metro North LIR, entrance is very obvious from the street instead of what JP Morgan does at their current building? Not the new headquarters, but the one that they currently occupy, so that it's very obvious from the street that this is a train entrance.
Yeah, I mean, that's MTA's jurisdiction, and they've directed and designed what the signage will be. Andrew, I don't know if you want to give any comment on it.
No, I think you're exactly right. It took a long time to develop the current design, develop with the MTA the current design. So believe me, they shared your sentiment that it should be very prominent from the street. So we did as much as we possibly can to actually design an entry that is as prominent as possible.
Any other questions from the committee? Do we have any public members online that would like to speak? Please raise your hand. None?
Nope.
Okay, so we're going into the business session on this application. So Tristan, do you have an idea for a motion?
I would motion to approve it. I wonder if there's some way, I don't know if this is a big part of it, but there has to be some way to like not have to force applicants to come back in the future if you're like decreasing things. Like, I feel like,
they have to, right?
Well, they have to do what
yeah,
DCP says they have to do. It's not in our.
exactly, like.
Yale said they had to do it.
Yes,
Yeah,
keep in mind, this is Ryan. This is a alumni association.
well, I guess I would support it, like a motion to approve it.
I'll second.
So, okay. Motion approved, second. Does anyone have anything that they want to particularly put into this, or are we gonna trust Tristan to write the draft?
We trust him.
Okay. It can be very brief. Okay, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thanks.
Oh, we're gonna vote. Do we vote?
Yes.
How about,
Unanimous.
Yes.
let's, okay, go ahead.
That's
Ben,
Yes.
Nancy.
Yes.
Mike,
Yes,
Tristan.
Yes.
Libby.
Yeah.
Kim,
Yes.
Yaron,
Yes.
Annie,
Yeah.
David,
Yes.
Myrtle.
Yes.
Joel.
Yes.
Chris.
Yes.
Motion
Okay.
passes.
Unanimous, okay. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now
Have a
we're
good
going
evening.
on.
Thank
Okay,
you, everybody. Take care.
Okay, so now we are having a presentation by George James, who is online. And why don't we go ahead and see what you have to tell us, George?
Okay, great. I will share my screen. Okay. So I am here today to talk about restrooms, public restrooms, and POPs. And I'm assuming everybody can see the screen. And before I get started, I just want to apologize ahead of time. This is dense. This is a dense presentation about a lot of potential zoning actions. But I don't know how to talk about zoning detail without it becoming dense. So stick with me. And if you have questions or things that need to be clarified, you should feel free to interrupt me. So Community Board 5 has long supported strategies to increase public restroom access. When CB5 reviews applications, including POPs, the board always advocates for public restrooms. The board's recommendations generally call for disapproval of modifications to POPs unless meaningful bathroom access is provided and clearly communicated to the public. The board produced a position paper that describes why the city should have more public restrooms. And it detailed these reasons why. Essential public infrastructure, equity and dignity. These are your words. Public health, tourism and economic vitality, and public safety and livability. I'm not going to read your words back to you, but you have an ample record on why you've been advocating for more public restrooms. And maybe not coincidentally, but it is true that it is now city policy to increase access to public restrooms. Local Law 114 of 2022 required the city to publish this report that I show on the right-hand side, which studies the status of public restrooms. And this was required by law. Local Law 58 of 2025 requires a citywide strategy to double the number of public restrooms, aiming for 2,120 by 2035. Our mayor has announced a program to develop a lower cost modular restrooms, which should be installed on public plazas. Local Law 58 requires at least half the public restrooms to be publicly owned. That means that the other half can include publicly accessible, privately owned restrooms. So as of 2024, there were 1,066 public restrooms in New York City. The vast majority of them are publicly owned. Nearly 70% of them are in parks. Nearly 20% of them are in libraries. Just 1% or 14 are in privately owned public spaces or POPs. And this is the breakdown by borough and the responsible agency from that report. So there are currently 20 public restrooms in Community District 5, according to the city's data. 6 of those 20 are already in POPs. That's nearly half the city's total restrooms that are in POPs. So this is a picture of 645 Fifth Avenue, which has 2 ADA compliant restrooms in their covered pedestrian spaces. So as you know, Community District 5 has many existing POPs. Most are unenclosed plazas. Some are covered pedestrian spaces, and some are arcades. And CD5 is going to get more POPs because of MSMX. All right, so as you probably all remember, MSMX provides this 20% bonus for covered pedestrian plazas, but it does not require restrooms in those covered pedestrian plazas. DCP stated that DCP could ask for restrooms when the applicant made their special permit applications. DCP also said in response to the Planning Commission, which expressed concerns that restrooms were omitted from the covered pedestrian spaces, DCP is on record stating to the Planning Commission that their POPs team is, quote, constantly looking at the regulations and if they make sense. We're constantly thinking about updates we can make, and on public restrooms, we're hearing you. And that was in response to the Planning Commission's concerns over the fact that there were no public restrooms required in the MSMX open space or public space. So one of the several ways to facilitate additional public restrooms is to examine how to add restrooms to POPs in the zoning resolution. So amenities in POPs are detailed in the zoning resolution. And so the zoning resolution could be amended to address public restrooms in POPs. So essentially we have, these are where all the existing POPs are, and there can be amendments to the zoning resolution to encourage them. And so the next, so how would we do that? So currently the zoning resolution lists amenities required for public plazas, for instance, which do not include restrooms. So this is straight from the zoning resolution. Amenities, we have seating, plantings and trees, lighting and electrical power, litter receptacles, bicycle parking, drinking fountains. And then you have additional amenities, which include artwork, movable tables and chairs, water features, children's play area, game tables, food service. Zoning, in fact, requires that plazas greater than 10,000 square feet must include food service as one of their 3 additional required amenities. Zoning can require a food amenity, but restrooms are not even listed in the amenities for plazas. But restrooms are found elsewhere in the zoning resolution. Restrooms are a permitted obstruction in public plazas. So while there aren't a listed amenity, developers can install them. And if they do, they don't detract from the space required for a plaza. In addition, restrooms are required amenities in POPs governed by 2 special purpose districts, West Chelsea and Hudson Yards. In West Chelsea, restrooms are required for certain zoning lots that are using the Highline Improvement Bonus. And the zoning details the standards, so they must be built. So if you're using that bonus, you have to provide a public restroom. And in Hudson Yards, restrooms are listed as permitted obstructions everywhere, and they're required in certain locations. And I quote the zoning text where they're saying that there must be a public restroom that serves the western or central open space, and essentially the first mover has to provide it. So what I do in the rest of this is I talk about possible zoning changes for more public restrooms in POPs. And the idea here is to develop a zoning strategy, which would be discussed with the Department of City Planning. These are just ideas that I'm throwing out there, which we're looking for feedback on. All right, so number 1, and they go from lightest touch to heaviest touch. So the lightest touch is to add public restrooms to the list of additional amenities for public plazas. This would permit restrooms to count as an additional required amenity for plazas over 5,000 square feet. So under current zoning, while they're permitted in plazas, they don't count as a required amenity. So developers providing restrooms still must provide all the other amenities that are required. This solution would be the lightest touch. It's an obvious improvement. I don't think there's any apparent downside. And applicants choosing to provide restrooms would have to maintain them, just as they must maintain other amenities in their plazas. But I must say that this solution is unlikely to provide a significant number of restrooms, but it's possible that this change would produce a handful of additional restrooms. Number 2, link the provision of public restrooms with the food service amenity. So currently, it is possible for a POPs to have a food service, but no public restroom. In fact, all plazas over 10,000 square feet must have a food service, but no public restroom is required. So this zoning solution would link the provision of food service to the provision of public restrooms. If an optional or required food service was provided in a POPs, a public restroom must also be provided. And this change from a technical perspective would be simple to implement in zoning because it would leave the POPs programs unchanged and instead would effectively change the definition of food service to include a public restroom as a part of that. You're serving food, you've got to actually have a public restroom. And there's, in my opinion, an appealing logic to this solution, input, output. The drawback to this solution, of course, is that developers may choose to decline food service as an amenity when they can, because sometimes it's an optional amenity, to avoid the public restroom requirement. As a result, this solution, if you implement it, this may actually result in less food service. Okay, number 3. So make public restrooms a required amenity in POPs. So zoning currently requires plazas to have seatings, plantings, trash receptacles, drinking fountains, and other amenities. So if zoning requires a drinking fountain in a public plaza, it can also require a public restroom. By not limiting the required amenity to the size of the POPs, the solution would prevent developers from designing spaces just below the size limit, right? To require a restroom. You just say it's a requirement. Instead, this solution would directly link the receipt of the POPs bonus to the provision of a restroom. The downside to this solution is it may discourage the use of POPs entirely. DCP, and also, as evidence of that is DCP had the option of requiring restrooms in covered pedestrian spaces in MSMX, and they chose not to include them. If they wouldn't require them in MSMX, would they require them elsewhere? I don't know. The discussion that they had at the City Planning Commission, it's worthwhile to listen to. It's linked into this presentation. You could go back and listen to it. They seem to say that they might, but they didn't in MSMX. Okay, so number 4. Make public restrooms a new amenity for additional floor area on top of the POPs bonus. So restrooms could be a new amenity that provides an additional bonus beyond the currently permitted floor area bonus. So zoning could be changed so that the plaza or covered pedestrian space provides a bonus of up to 20%, as it does today. But such space with a public restroom and all the other required amenities might provide a larger bonus. Maybe it's 25%, whatever it is, right? And if that's too large of a bonus, zoning could be changed to reduce the standard maximum POPs bonus to 15% without a restroom. And if you wanted to get the full 20%, you'd have to have a public restroom. Now, there's lots of downsides to reducing bonuses, especially the creation of non-complying POPs for current POPs. But there's a potential upside of adding an increase for a restroom, that existing POPs would have an incentive to alter their spaces to have a restroom, because then they would get an additional bonus, which they may be able to use for an addition or alteration. Number 5, make public restroom bonus completely separate from the floor area of the POPs. So the provision of the restroom and its floor area bonus could be separated from the POPs area entirely. So zoning, in this case, what I mean by that is zoning can be changed to provide a flat floor area bonus to any public restroom developed according to these minimum design standards, which would have to be outlined in the zoning. The bonus could vary according by district, so higher density districts could get a larger bonus. This change could mean that a POPs seeking a restroom bonus could be as small as the restroom itself and receive a flat floor area bonus for the provision of a public restroom. And this solution would be a benefit to owners of small sites where the provision of substantial POPs would be difficult or impossible. And that's the way it works now, is that POPs are generally only on very large sites or larger sites, or at least when they're small, they can't use the entire bonus because they can't provide the area necessary to maximize the POPs. So calibrating the proper size of this bonus for the provision of the restroom would be difficult. That's a downside. Like figuring out how to implement this would not be trivial. It would also require a change in our understanding of how POPs are defined. I mean, POPs are for the provision of open spaces. Most of them in your districts are for plazas, right? And this is like getting a POPs for a structure that has getting a bonus for a POPs for a structure that has, no open space. And then finally, the last one is a complete rethinking of this. Zoning could model the provision of a public restroom after the subway improvement bonus, and not POPs at all. It have nothing to do with POPs. So currently, developers can provide improvements to nearby subway stations in exchange for floor area bonuses. Such subway improvements are approved by the MTA and are ultimately controlled by the MTA. The developer constructs the improvement while the operation and maintenance is done by the MTA. And in exchange, the developer can get a bonus of up to 20%, but the amount of the bonus is directly related to the complexity and expense of the improvement. The provision of public restrooms could function similarly. A developer could provide a public restroom in a nearby public space, a library, a park, a subway station, or even a street or sidewalk in a location in New York City, right? So, there's been a lot of talk about how we use our biggest public space, street and sidewalks. Like, should it be used for parking? What else do we use it for? Should we use it for trash? Things like that. And so, could it be used as a place for a public restroom? Like subway improvements, the public restroom could be operated and maintained by the appropriate agency of the city or state of New York, but constructed by the developer. And that solution would give control over these spaces to the public agencies, avoiding city-led enforcement actions related to maintenance in private spaces. I mean, how many times have you gone into a POPs and tried to use the drinking fountain, right? Whether it works or not is a crapshoot, right? And this way there would be a city agency that's responsible for maintaining these facilities, which would have to be maintained often. And this solution would not involve POPs at all, but would result in publicly owned restrooms. Those are the 6 that we came up with. But ultimately, it could be some combination. They're not mutually exclusive. It could be any combination of these or something else entirely. There are many ways forward, but the committee, the next steps on this would be a committee discussion on questions and concerns. Are there holes that need to be filled? Have we missed something? Are there solutions that have not been investigated or proposed? Eventually, if this community board wants to be active on this, you should come to consensus on the zoning changes you'd like to see, but don't fall in love with them, because the board will need to be flexible, because the final zoning solutions need to be determined in collaboration with DCP and their POPs team, right? They're not going to let something they don't want to see move forward. And once the board determines that it is the desirable and acceptable zoning solutions you'd like to see, a pre-application meeting with DCP should be set and materials prepared for that meeting. So you don't prepare any application materials, but you describe what you want to see happen. And once the zoning solutions are determined, ultimately they will have to be written into zoning text. The land use application is going to have to be prepared. And you want DCP to prepare this application themselves. So you want them to say, oh, this is city policy. This is a city agency. They should do this application themselves. But there's always the option for the board, this community board, to prepare and write its own application. That is an option. Other boards have done it. And you have to be prepared that you may have to do it yourself, though that's not an option that you actually want to have happen. That's what I have today. Hopefully I can hear some feedback from you all and what you think.
George, thank you very much. So Julie and I, we reviewed some of this stuff and helped prepare this presentation tonight. And Julie and I came to the conclusion that we don't want to narrow in on any one particular option. We would like to keep all of the options available, because what we want to do is we want to approach DCP in a collaborative, flexible mindset. However, this is only what we've come up with George. First of all, is there anything that we have missed that you would like to add in that you didn't see yet? That's the first question. Anybody? Ankur.
Might be a slight refinement to 2, or you may have already captured it there. But did I understand correctly that if you have a 10,000 foot plaza or larger, you're required to add that you're required to have 3 additional amenities, one of which must be a food amenity?
That is correct.
Okay, if so, maybe if you're going to link the public restroom, could that count as one of the 2 out of the 3, as another one of the required ones, because you're going to require the restroom with the food service? So it might be a refinement to number 2, or something to consider.
I see. Yeah, I see what you're saying, is that you're saying, and that would also count to one of the amenities. That's a reasonable modification.
Okay, so that's one modification. So you'll take notes on these, George, and
Yeah.
we'll refine from our
Yeah.
comments. Zool.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, George. You know how important this topic is to this board. And, luckily our chairs are also experts on this subject, but really appreciate the density, because this issue has been very, very hard to solve. I just want to say that I think it's important for us to really point out, in not linking the food service to a restroom, we are really putting the public safety at risk, because without proper public sanitation, combined with food service, the public safety is at risk. But I certainly agree with what Nancy has said. We don't want to close any options. We want to be collaborative with the DCP. But I wonder if you can answer also what your thoughts are, if this makes any sense, what opportunities we might have with the new city council and with the new administration. And just on a lighter note, I would argue that restrooms are a water feature.
So those are very interesting comments, but what I was asking was, did we miss anything? Would you change or add any of the options? We're gonna do that first.
This is great.
You're fine with that, okay? Renal.
Well, my concern is that when we looked at MSMX, your determination was that the the FAR was so high that nobody was gonna avail of any bonuses. So not for the existing pops, but any new pops that do come up, if they come up at all in the MXMX district. I mean, A, they're very unlikely to come up for your assessment, and B, if they do come up, I mean. It's a chicken and the egg problem. We might not get any restrooms in that
Yeah.
rezoning.
Yeah, that's fair.
The other thing is, does the Department of Health not require? So if you have a food amenity and, is it a size criteria? Because I know that there is food amenity. And then you are required to provide restrooms as is by the Department of
For
Health, right?
patrons.
We don't have to go through the DCP route.
It has to have something to do with the amount of, okay, there is a requirement not in zoning. When you, at some point, you do have to provide a public restroom when you're a restaurant. It has to do with the number of seats, I believe. I am not expert on that because that's not zoning. We can look it up though, and we can find out what that threshold is. And it's probably a good idea to know before we actually move much further along in this. But right now, especially if it's like a food kiosk, and there's no seating associated with that kiosk, right? And it's just the seating for the pops. There is no restroom required.
And the difference is, even when the 20 seats is triggered, they had to provide a bathroom for their customers.
It's only for the customers.
It's only for the customers, so that's the
Right.
difference.
Ah,
Okay,
And then just one more thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
So one thing that we didn't cover here, or we kind of did cover here, but not completely, is enforcement in existing pops. So as you'd mentioned, with obviously if you have the city run the restrooms, that's great. But we know what the likelihood of that is. The cost will probably just balloon out of control, et cetera, et cetera. What is a good way to enforce pops requirements without getting the city involved? Because clearly the fines don't work.
yeah, I mean, I think the only way you can do enforcement is getting the city involved. I don't think you can enforce it otherwise, other than through shame, which I guess you're the community board. You can maybe try to shame people into maintaining their spaces, but ultimately, the city has the enforcement right and responsibility on these things. They just do not actively, as a matter of policy, as I understand it, is that they do not actively enforce any requirements for pops unless they get a complaint. And only when they get a complaint do they send out somebody to inspect, and only if they find failure at that inspection from a complaint will they take any kind of action.
And even when the action is taken, the fines are generally just so small that it sort of renders any enforcement moot. So maybe that is something that's missing in this and should go in there as well. I mean, increasing the fines, maybe making it punitive enough where people start to pay attention.
Right. So that's not in the that's not in zoning. But I think it's an extra element to this, is that if you're going to have this essential amenity as being part of a POPs for which you're getting a bonus, well, then you got to make it accessible and open and available and maintained. And you're talking about an issue that is a problem, and it's a problem that the city has not addressed on their current POPs. And I don't know what that solution is, but there should be a better solution than what we have.
Let's keep that as a separate idea. And we'll figure out a way maybe to do that as a separate item. Yaron, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you. And thanks for this presentation. To directly answer your question, Nancy, I don't necessarily see anything missing, but I do have a clarified question I need sort of answers to help me think through this. When we talk about a public restroom in a POPs, does the zoning require it to be proximate to the POPs? And like, are we talking about in the POPs? There was in the quote you had from Hudson Yards, there was a line of or in the first floor of an adjacent building.
Yeah.
So like, where's the zoning on like how close? It seems reasonable. It seems like we'll get more bathrooms if people can take an existing bathroom and just make it a public bathroom rather than building a new one.
Yeah.
So how close does it have to be the pops?
So that is a detail we haven't thought about. I mean, but I can tell you my sense is that pops serve a building, right? A building receives a pops bonus, and that if you have the restroom in the building adjacent to the pops and it is directly accessible from the pops, that's fine, right? I mean, that seems completely reasonable. You don't want to have it on the third floor of that building, but and you have to go through security to get there, right? You want to have it directly accessible to the pops, but yeah, sure, it could be in the building. It probably should be in the, you know, if it's in the building, well, then the area of the pops is, you know, isn't reduced by the structure.
And there is no current requirement in the zoning of where the bathroom needs to be.
So no, there's really isn't. I mean, except that one part in Hudson Yards, right? That's where it's identifying where it needs to be. Again, restrooms are rare in zoning, just in those two special districts.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
Kevin,
Similar to your own, I don't have a addition, but I have a clarifying question. On point number 3, if we were to suggest making restrooms a requirement for new pops, I'm wondering if there's any rule of thumbs in terms of, well, my assumption is that the reason not to include a restroom if you're already building a pop is because of the cost. And so is the cost minimal enough compared to the benefit they get from the bonus of having a pop to begin with? Is that difference significant enough that they wouldn't blink twice? Or is it is the cost of a restroom kind of comparable to the economic benefit of the bonus, so much so that they might consider canceling the pop altogether? Is that reasonable?
Yeah, you know, there's an equation there, which I don't know the answer to. And I would also say that it's not only the construction costs, but it's the ongoing maintenance and repair. It's because when you have a POPs, you sign on to maintaining that POPs forever until you no longer need the building, right? And that encumbers your building. And so it's an equation which I don't know the answer to. There may be people in this room that have better understanding of what that equation and how that works.
David, do you want to share the math? You did some quick math on a recent application where, was it the new JP Morgan building? Is that
I think it was the Citadel building. We looked at this and we looked at it on the Commodore, the 42nd Street.
Right, and what was the math on?
Well, I mean, I guess that's the reverse of this, is that in both of those cases, they were getting like 250,000 square foot bonuses for public space, and yet they still weren't willing to put a bathroom in. Which, you know, to your point, Kevin, it's like, what's the math in that? You know, it's
We thought we calculated.
it's like $1 million to build it.
Right, but they were getting something worth billions, is that right?
Yeah, I mean,
Billions.
yeah. Well, I think there was like $600 or $700 million of cost associated with the bonus that they were getting. I didn't even, you know, I don't know from a value standpoint, it was higher than that. But they were spending, you know, $600 or $700 million to build the space that they got the bonus on, but they weren't willing to spend $1 million of that or something, and the maintenance cost to build the bathroom.
And then the revenue from rents from that space.
Are you saying it costs $1 million to build a restroom?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the number that they had thrown.
I mean,
That
couple
was for the-
$100,000. But just know that when a city, a park's bathroom right now costs $5 million. So this really
that's
saves
insane.
saves the city budget to use $5 million for something else.
But is that an incentive for private?
Because it's freestanding.
FAR. In exchange for FAR, you spend $200,000 on a bathroom. That is the maintenance.
But I mean, something's going on in the math, because the two largest projects that got bonuses were not willing on the surface to provide a bathroom. So I think there's something in the math we don't fully understand.
It's not just math, we have social problems. We have,
Yes.
Oh, no, I'm just saying, like, but in terms of,
Right, but that's.
when you present this, when you package it this way, because when George started talking about it, all I was thinking of is, well, think of it as dollars. And then you're gonna go through the laundry list of amenities and you're gonna pick that one last. Because everything else is cheaper, it's cheaper for you to put a water feature in, even if it leaks. It's cheaper to put furniture in, it's cheaper to put lighting in. So you're gonna do all of those before you ever think of doing a bathroom unless you're obligated to, so.
We have any more questions for George or things that we missed before we get into comments? Anybody else? Okay, Ankur?
So a bit of a reaction to that. I agree. I think that there's something more in the math happening. It may be the social problem point, and that's a real point. I mean, we have to think about this. These are meant to be sort of major office buildings. They're massive investments. We want to encourage them. There's a lot of good that comes out of it just from having that additional office space in a centralized location. That's why some of the ideas, and this was a great presentation. Some of the ideas here that are more that offer even additional benefits. I think maybe could go a long way to addressing that. And rather than, I found the ones the most appealing as the one that suggested maybe increasing the POPs bonus from 20 to 25 if you do this, or ones that make it a completely separate additional bonus outside of the POP. And that might induce people to do this because I share your concern that there's some reluctance beyond sort of the simple math here that maybe we can achieve by making it even more attractive.
Anybody else? Zool?
Yeah, I think what Julie's brought up is very important to understand the social problems, but the social problems are also part of what's happened with the city's ability to do very basic work. In the privatization of recent decades, we've lost so much staff, and we have to go to outside vendors for just about anything that involves any kind of construction of maintenance, and that's why we've got these crazy costs. $5 million for a bathroom in the park, $1 million for just a piece of crap like the one we have by Madison Square Park, where you still have to put a quarter in it. If we could get anything like, the Bryant Park restrooms, which is the sine qua non, and would make such a difference for us, that would be quite amazing. So we really have to think strategically of how we can work with DCP to get some of the answers that George has provided, with the help of, of Nancy and Julie, through the DCP, and probably with the help of the new city council and the new administration.
Do we have anyone online? Anyone that would like to speak? Anyone, that includes anyone online?
From the public, you mean?
From anywhere? From anywhere? Does anyone online want to say anything? Okay. Any other questions or things that we missed, or there comments people would like to make? Because now we're going to go back into our business session, into our discussion. We're not resolving this tonight. But we want everybody to think about it. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, George, we don't know who the new commissioner of city planning is going to be. And we don't know when that person is going to be appointed. But I think that right now, our timing isn't the best to try to meet with DCP. Do you agree, George?
Oh, I agree. I think you have a golden opportunity though right now to decide what you want to do and be ready for that meeting when the commissioner is named and they have some direction.
You're on.
Sorry, the only other question I had was, are we talking about this potentially citywide or just CB5 or just MSMX? Like what, or is that something for us to talk about?
That's something for us to talk about, but I would prefer that we talk about it in Community District 5 if we could. For me, the origin of this came up where we would have applications coming before us or for special permits where there's an open air cafe, and we asked the operator or the landlord, the owner of the POP, to provide public access to bathrooms. And we had some that said yes, some that said no. And for the most part, I think it's important that we vote on issues and come to a unanimous collaborative consensus among our board, our committee. But that wasn't happening because there were people that felt that since it wasn't in the regulations, they couldn't support the vote to approve a denial unless they provided access to public restrooms. So for me, that's where this is coming from.
Yeah, understood. Okay, thanks.
So I don't know, do other people feel, Julie?
Yaron, are you saying that this could be a proposal for the whole city, right? Like,
That's what I was asking. I was like, are we asking that this is a citywide text amendment, or is this just within SMX?
yeah,
Or
because George mentioned like some special districts require bathrooms, and do we
Right.
want to be a special district, or do we want DCP to consider this for the whole city?
That's
And
what I'm
I
asking.
think the goal is the whole city. I
Okay.
mean, George, what do you think? Do you have
Yeah,
any?
okay, so if you're doing a private application, meaning like DCP says, oh yeah, we like the idea, but it's not a priority for us, and so you guys go ahead and do it. You're probably going to want to limit it to either your community district or special districts within your community district that may be like Midtown Special District. It goes over a little bit, right? It goes into 6, it goes a little bit into 4. Because it just makes it more complicated when it's citywide, right? And if you're doing your own application, you don't necessarily want to make it more complicated because it costs more, right? And it's harder to do. Now, if DCP gets behind this and does their own application, they may very well want to make it citywide, right? And in my humble opinion, they should, right? It should be a citywide solution to a citywide problem. So I think, that will be a determination that comes out of the discussions with the Department of City Planning.
So based on that, David,
George, is there anybody in the new mayoral administration, the public realm person, or anybody else that would be interested in this, or?
Mayor.
Well, the mayor and the speaker have been, putting out videos about public restrooms, right? I don't know if you've seen them. It was really astounding the way everything was all coming together and everybody was talking about public restrooms at the same time that we were talking about it. It was kind of crazy.
We could just team up with other CBs, and it doesn't have to be just our district. And if we go to CB8 where the speaker represents, then
We have this public bathroom working group, so there are members from CB1, CB4.
well, I'm just saying, Julie Menon is
Yeah.
overlaps with 8, so
It's a good point, but
that would be the one to.
I know these other CBs have passed resos asking DCP to require bathrooms for pops over 10,000 square feet, and we did that as well.
Right.
And this is just a more formal step.
but that's fine, except that then we're gonna get pops that are 9,900 square feet.
Yeah, no, that was just.
So that's the downside of having, yeah, exactly. So I don't know where else we take this. Are there any other questions or comments from this committee? I think, our new, Manhattan Borough President would support this.
Definitely.
Good.
So I don't know what our next step is. I think we're in a bit of a waiting pattern for now.
Well,
And
if I may, my suggestion, if I may make a suggestion, is that if this committee doesn't have any issues, like doesn't say we don't want that, right? What we do is we prepare materials for what we would call the pre-application meeting with the Department of City Planning, so that we get ready for that, because that is the next step, right? You want to get lots of support, but there's a process, and you also don't want to step on anybody's toes in the process. And the Department of City Planning very jealously guards the zoning resolution, right? It's what they do, right? So you don't want to necessarily go over their head, right? That's the next step. And so the next step will be setting up that meeting with them. And we can have a new commissioner any day. We should have a new commissioner. I'm still astounded that we don't have one. And you know, getting the materials ready that you're happy with, and then that would be the next step, and maybe even having the first conversation with your DCP liaison to like tell them that you're doing this and that you're looking to set up that meeting when DCP is ready, right? Which isn't going to be until after there's a commissioner.
Well, we have our DCP liaisons actually online now.
I did not realize.
But he's not interested in speaking. Is that correct? DCP liaison? No?
He raised his hand.
Oh, he's raised his hand. Okay, go ahead. This is great. Dylan, hi Dylan. Go
Hello.
ahead.
Hi, can you all hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. And yeah, I wanted to let you all have your discussion and you know, have your dialogue with George. I think it's a great point. I think a lot of great points were raised about the timing of this and really how to approach it. I will say that you know, seeing this this, you know, the bathrooms issue being raised by the mayor bodes well for, you know, there may be some sort of initiative that they want to bring to the Department of State Planning when there's a new chair. I really don't know, but that's, you know, I see that as something that would probably manifest as a land use issue. So I hope we get a chance to work on that. You know, myself independently, you know, I really hear you all on this, and I believe in it as well. So I'd like to see, you know, I'd like to see something get done. I'd like to see the community be raising this, so that, you know, we are aware that CB5 is very passionate about this, and we do appreciate that. So I think yeah, continue to think about the best way to bring this to us. If it's a memo, if you want to take it to an actual application, you know, we're always, you know, welcome to sit down and have a conversation and have an informational meeting and talk about what next steps would look like. But yeah, just to harp on that point one more time about the new chair, there's going to be a lot of, you know, it's going to take some time to, first of all, figure out who our new chair is when they land, and getting them up to speed before we're able to start bringing some, you know, something like a citywide text amendment to them. But I'm glad that it's being discussed. And one more small point is about the there was a discussion about the kind of POPs and the enforcement issue. I also hear that issue, and I'll just say that the Department of Buildings is the enforcer of those types of things. That's completely out of our jurisdiction. So I think if that's something you do want to raise about the enforcement of certain design aspects of POPs, the Department of Buildings would be the appropriate agency to go to about that.
Dylan, thank you so much. I think what we're looking to do then is to figure out a way to have a discussion, a meeting with DCP as soon as DCP is ready to talk with us. Is that right, George? That's what I think our next step is.
Yeah, I mean, we have to prepare materials to try to maybe flesh it out a little bit more. But yeah, I mean, it could be a memo, but I think a meeting would be appropriate when it's appropriate for the department, right? I mean, we all understand that without a chair, there's not much you can do right now. But I mean, Dylan, we haven't met yet, but I'm pleased to meet you, and I'm also pleased to see that you recognize that, you know, the mayor's talking about this, and there might be something coming down, and so our interests all may merge very soon.
Okay, Julie, and then we have a couple more comments here. Julie, or you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question for George. When there's a citywide zoning text amendment like this, does an environmental study have to be done?
Oh, absolutely. That's the biggest challenge in getting an application done, is doing the environmental, right? It's always is.
David.
Yeah, I feel like this is really a political issue, not a specific zoning issue. Like, nobody's going to do anything at city planning or anywhere else unless this comes down as a priority. And everybody has to go to the bathroom, so it's a common issue. So I mean, I would recommend that we go the other way, that, you know, this presentation is now public. DCP staff has seen it. We can share it with them as what it is, and then take it to the other CVs, take it to the Manhattan Borough President's office, and build support for doing this. Not, you know, not start from the technical aspect, start from the basic need aspect.
I think what George is saying is that he doesn't, and correct me if I'm wrong, George, it could be counterproductive to go and garner all this support and then go to TCP.
No,
It would
I'm
be
saying
better to
we now have a
talk with
public
them first.
presentation.
Yes.
They have seen it, but let's share it with them and say, this is something we're gonna be working on. And then I would go and use the time, because otherwise we're sitting on our hands, waiting until TCP has reformulated itself. And then we're gonna go have this conversation. We might as well go out and broaden the base of support on this
I
until
agree.
such a time as there's somebody that can receive it. And it's not unique to us. I mean, the idea that we're gonna apply it to some special district in CB5, that's strictly a process issue at that point. It's not a, you know, it's not the issue itself.
Annie, do you have your hand up?
Yes.
Okay.
I'd also, to add on to David's comment, that they're gonna want like fast wins, and they've already said that this is a priority for them. So if we set this up as a lane that they can immediately jump into, I think that that's doing a little bit more of a proactive position. That's obviously standing on the shoulders of many years of effort on CB5's part, but I think that that's completely makes sense to me. It's just.
Michael, you have your hand up.
I'm off this for.
Let some other people talk first. Michael?
I agree with Annie and with David. But shouldn't we as a committee also vote to say and send this as a resolution to the full board that have support authorizing us to be doing this work and having meetings and doing all of that?
Is that what we want to do? I hadn't really been prepared to do that because this was just sort of our preliminary discussion, so. George, what do you think?
I think you got to manage your own board processes. Whatever you think is most appropriate. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer to this. It's how you know, it's a board issue.
I'm sorry, what? Julie?
George, what about what Annie and David was saying to get public support and push the political aspect?
So you're making a very good point that this deck is now public, right? It's a public meeting, it's out there. And you've been very public about this. I think as long as you're clear that, you understand that that ultimately the next step is with the Department of City Planning and they have control over this issue, it doesn't hurt to build support. But I also qualify this by saying I'm a technical guy, I'm not the political guy, right? And so again, people in this room may understand the politics of this better than I do.
Okay, Zool, and then you're on.
I very much agree with David and Annie and Mike on this, so I hope we'll get to that. But so David's But to David's initial point, this very much is a political issue, but there's nothing more political than zoning in this town. So let's pull out all the stops and make this happen.
You're on.
So procedurally, I think the idea that we send it to DCP is like, here's what we're working on while we garner support and wait for that meeting, I think is exactly right. I would say to the question of what the committee and the board need to approve, I think anything we're sending to an agency as the perspective of the board should be voted on by the board. I think that to me would be appropriate.
So you're on. Let me ask you this because you're vice chair. And this is a presentation that is quite long, and I don't know how we write a resolution without someone going through this presentation and listening to it. I think it's going to be really hard. What do you think?
Well, I think what you can say, because I think what's
You'll
that?
write Julie says she can write the res out.
But I also think we can, so let's think about what the resolution's saying. What the resolution is saying is the board is actually not choosing one of these 7 or any other option, right? So the board is not having a perspective on how to move forward, except that we would like to generally move forward. So I think the resolution can be, we resolve to continue exploring this issue as laid out with some combination or none at all of the options in the attached appendix, and that would be the presentation itself. And we want to send it to DCP as like, here's an opening to our conversation. You can stick it all in the appendix and just reference it as like a document. Like I don't know that, because the board actually doesn't have a perspective right now. The board is opening a conversation. So I would personally be, I don't speak for Brad, but I would personally be fine with that.
So, but the board does have a perspective because we have passed bathroom requirements.
Right.
prior-
No. I mean, the board, and
Yes.
to reiterate those, the board does not have a perspective of the 7 items that George
No.
laid out, or none of the above. The board is not
Correct.
weighing in on that yet. So that's why it can just be a sort of general resolution. We are, in line with what we have always maintained as a board. We believe such and such and such about bathrooms, and we resolve to send this to you, DCP, to open a conversation about this issue as we, continue to explore. Here are the things we're considering. That's fine.
Okay, I think we have consensus for the most part. I'm not going to speak for everyone because we haven't voted. That we are going to stay with all 6 options and be flexible and collaborative with DCP, correct? So we're not going to narrow anything down. We're going to keep this very broad in our thinking and in our options at this point in time, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, having said that, George, are there any other, you keep talking about additional documents that we need to prepare in order to meet with DCP. Am I correct that we can use this, or do you have to go a little bit?
Okay, so this is not written for DCP. But yeah, this is a good starting point, right? And, so if I were writing this for a pre-application meeting, it would look a little different, but it would be content the same. So I'm okay sending this along with the understanding that this was done for your committee, not necessarily for DCP. In terms of substance, it's going to be the same.
We can
Okay, so
specify that in the resolution.
So then in the resolution, we want to say that we will authorize George to put together a more DCP focused.
No, a pre-application.
Some sort of document that would be a pre-application to meet with DCP, which would be more than what we have right now in this presentation, because it's not technically their language, I guess, I'm trying to say, right?
Again, it would be, we could drill down a little deeper, but I also don't want to spend an enormous amount of time drilling down to any of these solutions, because DCP could just go, we don't want to do that, or we can't do that because of X, Y, and Z, right? So, it's not an enormous amount of work, right? It would be essentially just focusing it a little bit more towards DCP, or you could just take this and just use this as a kind of starting point. Either way is there's not a wrong way here.
Yeah, I would motion to use what George has presented tonight as a resolution and move that forward.
So are we doing a reso or a letter?
I think Yaron says we could go ahead and do a reso.
Yeah, I don't know that it matters.
A
Or reso is the same thing. Some boards only do letters. They
It doesn't
never do
matter.
reso.
We sometimes parse the difference. There is no difference. So we.
I mean, if you feel strongly about this.
Well, yeah, I was gonna
it
say,
could be a
what's the
reso.
letter too?
Oh, no, I think it's just a reso of the board. Because if we're gonna send it to CB 1 through 12.
Yeah.
And then
reso.
we want to cover that too. Right?
Okay, resolution. And Julie will write the resolution. Is there anything specific that people want in that resolution? Ankur?
So I love the presentation and love the options and bring that forward. When you give the summary of our previous position, I think Nancy acknowledged that there were, and I'm one of them, so some voices that had some disagreement with wanting to add bathrooms if it's not otherwise required in the zoning amendment. And so I think I would be cautious about statements that say our board agrees that, that we need to have bathrooms in these facilities. I agree that if there's bonuses for it, that we can have them, but we didn't all unanimously agree on that. So I would just note that.
Well, I think what we're saying is we're gonna take the text of what George's presentation is, and that's the basis for the resolution. That's what we're going to say.
No.
No?
His presentation's the appendix, but the reso is gonna introduce.
Yeah, I would not make any new text, whatever statements we've made in past things, they were approved by the board, there may have been no votes.
There may have
But we have
been-
language
that's
that was
fine, but if
approved by the board, and that's what should be,
Yeah.
maybe the whereases say, whereas on April 5th, 2001, we said this.
Yeah.
And, keep doing that, and then.
I have
But
no
only
objection to
lift
that.
the
That's
language
factual.
from prior, I wouldn't make up any new language on that.
Can I reiterate just what I said? So I think that's right. I think the resolution, the whereas clauses are the position of the board through the years, however far you want to go back, Julie, that's up to you. The position of the board on this issue. And the resolved is we're going to reach out to DCP and CBs 1 through 12 or whatever, however else you want to put it, with these options and potentially other ones. We shouldn't limit it. The options laid out in Appendix A about how to solve this issue, and we're going to continue talking about how to move forward. That's it. That's the resolution. You don't have to
But just between Julie and Yaron, maybe they should work on this together. If everyone agrees with what they're saying, Mike?
I would just want the resolution to say that we are authorizing the board and the committee leadership to negotiate on our behalf with DCP and with George James, and make it more general instead of, and list all the history. But not to say, oh, these options, just in general, we're gonna meet and talk about improving the public bathroom situation in our district.
Nancy. I think that's good. I think Mike's suggestion is very good, but also just to accommodate Anka's concern, if you use some kind of language like the board broadly agrees.
No, broad authorized
Good. Okay, you're happy
We
with.
voted for it. Not everything is,
We don't need an adjective.
yeah.
Just like
George,
we
go
did.
back to you.
We did exactly what we did, give it back. Very good.
Presentation, the first, second slides that you have, because she states it very clearly.
I'm sorry?
Go back to your can you put your presentation up
Yep.
again?
One moment.
But he states it very clearly. We just use that same language.
But we have board resos that we
Yeah.
could do.
Yeah.
I feel, I
Hey, you
feel.
can say
And we're
that.
not, we're not gonna take any action unless we rehear this and have a position.
That's the last.
That's what I'm just saying.
I'm sorry, you want the
authorizing
first text slide is what you said?
Yeah,
But as opposed to
next slide.
negotiating or whatever, I don't know that comes out of this
No.
without getting back to the board.
I
Right.
mean, and you also had your reasons, right? These are your detailed reasons why.
Board took a position, wasn't a consensus position, but the board took a position.
Kevin,
I think one difference between what we've said in the past and what we're doing now is we're not just pushing for public bathrooms. Now we're trying to formalize it into the law around building
Yeah.
or creation of POPs. And that's the only difference I would suggest being added to resolution, in addition to everything we said.
Yeah, and I agree with that, Kevin, and I think that's why we're going to vote on it as a resolution, because it is a new step. And I think what we want the board and the committee to agree on is that we have the approval to explore, to not even do it yet, but to explore this step.
That's right.
And some of them are non-pops, right?
Yeah.
They were incentives to do it.
Yeah.
As a freestanding incentive, I mean.
Right.
okay, any other final comments then, Julie, Murnell?
I do think there needs to be something around enforcement in there, and maybe the DOB needs to get a copy of that.
I would disagree with that because enforcement is something different. This is a discussion with DCP about new initiatives for public restrooms in POPs. It's not about the current problems we have. I'm afraid that if we do that, we are watering down our approach and looks like we're complaining rather than creating.
If you do get these restrooms and then they're not maintained, then it's.
Wait, I totally agree
guys.
with both of you guys. I think the public bathroom solution needs to be interagency
Yes.
and everybody needs to get involved, and not just the zoning. That's just the front end, but the back end too. But I think Nancy's right. We need to focus on this, what we're trying to do here, and zoning is a big. It's gonna be hard to push this.
And we have to grab, the sentiment of the mayor right now. He doesn't want to pay $9 to go to the bathroom, and he doesn't think anyone else should pay $9 to go to the bathroom.
Is that 2 coffees?
I don't know, that's his quote. He doesn't want to pay $9.
Any? It's forever.
Okay, so, we have a resolution. Do we want to take this to a vote? Then?
Yes.
Yes, okay, so we have a resolution. Are you making a motion? Julie?
I think David made a motion
Yeah,
like
yeah.
5 statements ago.
Second.
And then we have a second, so now are we gonna vote?
Yes.
I'm gonna watch this video again and get all your comments in there. Don't worry, guys. Seth?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonker?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Tristan?
Yes.
Libby?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Duran?
Yes.
Annie?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Ronald? Zool?
Yes.
And Chris.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, so get out your snowshoes.
Thank you, George.
Oh, thank you. It's great.
We should require that the bathrooms be temperature regulated. I think it's 96.
Peter, Japanese seats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have the steam tunnel, they can figure out a way to make it work. If you're repairing a steam tunnel nearby.